Cristiano Ronaldo has now had over 20 years of solid footballing experience at the senior level, and amongst the intermittent transfers, tough times and tragedies, but repeated triumphs and in turn trophies/titles he and his teammates have tirelessly tallied over the totality of 2 decades, he has also, as of recording, played under 22 different managers, all differing in terms of quality as managers, quality as coaches, and quantity of success. So who was the best? Well, I'm glad you asked, because here is every single manager CR7 has played under, ranked from worst to best. But first, here's how this ranking will work. So the primary factor I'll judge all these managers on in this video will be their time with Ronaldo and 1. How successful they were together, and 2. How well they managed CR7 in particular. Because let's face it, seems like a right fucking headache at times. And if we're still splitting hairs on those levels, then I guess the tiebreaker would be their careers without Ronaldo. If not, then yeah, outside success will not really factor here. Sorry, certain people on this list. Also, his current 2 coaches will not feature here as it's not fair to judge mid-tenure. Got it? Good. If not, read a book. Let's roll on. Number 20, Erik ten Hag. And straight off the bat, that is why... Hey. But yeah, that is why you should clearly state the factors of judgment before stating the list. Because if this list was based purely on their managerial abilities, this man would 100% rank a lot higher. And yes, I'm still Ten Haging, idiots. But as far as managing old Ronnie, literally though, yeah, it was a disaster, wasn't it? And while most of Ronaldo's fanboys prefer to just vilify the sore throat sounding spherical scalp deck centre back and subsequently separate themselves from the situation instead of soundly seeking/searching for the actual truth. The actual truth is that it was probably just bad timing more than anything else. Ronaldo being at a point in his life where he needed people with more compassion to be around him, and Ten Hag simply having no time for that because he had a club to rebuild, which he is still trying to do. How's that going, by the way? So ultimately, a parting of the ways was always the best option. Number 19, Ralf Rangnick. Okay, see, this is where the difficulty lies. This guy pretty much delivered under all these managers. He's one of the greatest of all time after all. But with Mr. Rangnick though, I just don't think he was used well enough. With the chronic injury problems the club had around that time, combined with the fact that CR7, even at 37, was still by far the best player in the club, going with his suggestion of a 2-striker system and sticking with it till the end of the season to secure top 4 would, in my opinion, been the way to go. Unfortunately though, Mr. Rangnick didn't see it that way and instead started doing some bookie shit like Pogba and Fernandes up front. I know as much as you do. Number 18, Dinko Jelicic. So for those who don't know, this is the manager that took over the reins at Al-Nassr following the club's random ass dismissal of Rudi Garcia mid-April 2023. Dinky Winky's last game was near the end of May, so yeah, not really enough time to judge. He still delivered though. My guy, number 17, Rafael Benitez. Okay, who the f*** thought this was a good idea? Listen, Benitez is a very good coach from a tactical standpoint. But in order for his tactics to work, he needs to work with largely unproven and fairly average players who will buy into his shit and do the job assigned to them. But as far as a bunch of super talented and self-indulgent divas go, they'll literally just look at him like, who put glasses on this f***ing potato? However, either oblivious to all this or simply just not giving a f***, Rafa just went on about his business like he was oblivious to all this or he simply just didn't give a f***. Even at one point giving a USB to CR7 filled with clips on how to lose a defender. How to lose your job, ladies and gentlemen. The only reason why he wasn't even lower, because Ronaldo's record under him was actually world class, averaging about a goal a game and breaking the Real Madrid all-time goal scoring record during that period. And as for Benitez, he was unfortunately sacked not long after his last game, a 2-2 draw away at Valencia. Gary Neville's Valencia. Peculiar indeed. Number 16, Rudi Garcia, the manager who was given the mammoth task of bringing in a mega signing mid-season, making him his captain and building the team around him. And to be fair, despite a rocky start, he did really well, with Al-Nassr going on to play some nice stuff post-January, to the point where even this coach's last game was a 5-0 win away at Al-Adala. But for one reason or another, they mutually parted ways. Number 15, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. Oh man, what could have been? Look, let's not get it twisted. Tactically as a coach, Ole was way out of his depth. But that's the thing. Not every team has to strictly be set up a certain way. And with the nature of the squad Ole had at his disposal, exciting and skillful offensive talent, I do think the free-flowing attacking football was the way to go. Just if only. 1. He had a fully fit Cavani or Martial to play regularly down the middle, like he did away at Tottenham, where they cooked. And 2. If he had a Casemiro like CDM. Cause since Nemanja Matic just didn't have the legs anymore, Ole had to usually stick both Beavis and Butthead here to do one man's job, sacrificing an additional ball player in the process. But man, I'm saying it now, if he did have access to a centre forward regularly to free up Ronaldo and a CDM to free up all of the attack, this United side would genuinely have been title contenders. Ah man, what could have been? Number 14, Michael Carrick. I'm including him, I don't care. Cause despite him only being there for a mere 3 games, game for game, this was the best I've seen Ronaldo manage since he left Madrid. As Carrick, who just happens to be another ex-teammate of Ronaldo's, Jesus Christ, he's been around for ages, hasn't he? Gave him the freedom to roam along the front line, benched him in games where United won't be on the front foot. He knew he was only gonna be there for a few days, so I guess he could risk it, and in turn keep him fresh for when it mattered. Result, 3 goals in 2.5 games, including Ronaldo's best all-round performance in his second stint at Manchester United, the crucial UCL away tie at Villarreal. And while I didn't really give it much thought at the time, in retrospect, man, I wish he stayed for longer. Number 13, Paulo Bento. The man who managed Ronaldo in international football during his absolute peak of 2010 to 2014. And honestly, as far as specifically managing Ronaldo, he was good. I mean, he refused to play Ronaldo through the middle, good start, made him the focal point of the team, not like he had much choice with this lot, and to be fair to him, considering he did have this lot, he did pretty well, with Portugal playing the only way they could actually afford to, i.e. focusing on keeping a clean sheet and relying on Ronaldo to pull off something up the other end. Bento managed to reach a Euro semi-final, bowing out only in penalties to one of the greatest sides of all time, due to one of the stupidest penalty decisions of all time. Ironically enough though, the problem with Bento seemed to be his over-reliance on his captain, as evidenced by Portugal losing to mandem like Albania in Ronaldo's absence, and their disastrous showing at the 2014 World Cup while he was carrying an injury. Once again though, with this team, there probably wasn't much he could do. Number 12, Andre Pirlo. Another example of someone who, if this list was solely based on managerial ability, would have certainly ranked somewhere near the bottom. But man, you gotta cut Pirlo some slack. The guy took over Juve at a time where the players who made up the core of their great side were pretty much all on or approaching their final legs. See this video for more info. So yeah, league form wasn't great, but as usual though, Ronaldo did his job, winning the Serie A Golden Boot at the ripe old age of 36, as well as adding the Italian Cup to his unprecedented collection. Number 11, Maurizio Sarri. Spoilers, there really isn't much separating all 3 of Ronnie's coaches at Juve. But Sarri can't be any higher than this man. Like bro, this man actually gave City Joao Cancelo plus cash for Danilo. What? I don't care if this has nothing to do with CR7. This is about life. Danilo isn't good for life. Positive side though, when Sarri was the manager of Chelsea, he used to frequent this shisha place down Edgware Road in London, and in turn became really close with the kebab shop owner next door. And then when he arrived in Turin, he actually brought the kebab shop owner along with him. Meaning that Ronaldo didn't have to play centrally, which we know he hates. And while they were pushed hard in the league, the old lady brought home their 9th and final Scudetto on the bounce and also reached the final of Coppa Italia, only losing on a penalty shootout. Where once again this complete ornament just stood there watching his teammates fluff their lines. Someone needs to have a word with him about this man. Number 10, Massimiliano Allegri. Don't let the end of season departure fool you. Allegri and Ronaldo were a very good pair. His first and officially last manager in Italy, Allegri actually did really well to integrate Ronaldo in the system in his first season, and while not exactly seamless, he was certainly helped by CR7's decision to take a break from international football to adjust to life in Italy, and as a result, not only did Juve retain their title, but opened up a significantly higher points gap in the process. In Europe though, they fell short in the quarters of that crazy continental campaign containing a curious and uncanny catalogue of courageous, capricious and closely contested classic comebacks. But needless to say, they certainly weren't the only giants that were slayed that season. Number 9. Manuel Pelligrini. Underrated campaign this. Like, considering the man came in right at the start of a rebuild, was given a fresh batch of, yes, world-class players, but individuals who've never really played together, running one of the greatest club sides of all time that close, while amassing 96 points in the league. Bro, that's seriously impressive. And while Real did crash out in the last 16 in the UCL, believe it or not, this was pretty much the norm back then. Boy, were things about to change. And as far as this player-manager duo in particular, you have to realize that despite coming in as the most expensive footballer in history, Ronaldo was still way down the pecking order as far as seniority in the club. Like hell, the guy wasn't even CR7 that season, and therefore, not only was he not given any special treatment, he also had to play multiple different positions in a pretty unsettled team. But still though, he did his job, and the coach did his. Result, decent stuff when context is considered, but trophyless nonetheless. Number 8, Laszlo Belloni. You never forget your first. And that's pretty much about it. Nothing really much else happened with him. But still, that's a pretty big thing, ain't it? And Belloni will now forever be the very first manager to introduce Ronaldo, along with his old pal Ricardo Quaresma, to football's senior level. And to be fair, he put a lot of faith in these guys from the get-go, with the two wingers amassing almost 70 games between them that season, and consequently, both moved on to bigger and, what should have been, at least in the case of Quaresma, better things the following summer. And since there's not really much else to say about this entry, here's a random fact. This bloke is actually a former Champions League winner. The team he beat in the final? Barcelona. Isn't that tasty? Number 7, Carlos Queiroz. So let's get it clear, if this was solely based on Queiroz' time as the head coach of the Portuguese national team from 2008 to 2010, he'd have ranked considerably lower. Because believe it or not, there was actually a time just before the worst World Cup of all time. These men look like they may not even qualify, and Queiroz' overly defensive approach wasn't really on the same page as his captain. Having said that though, you have to bear in mind that A, given the lack of genuine quality at their disposal, aka this lot, Portugal honestly did fairly well in the actual tournament, smashing 7 past North Korea and holding Brazil to a stalemate before, of course, once again going out narrowly to eventual winners who just happened to be one of the greatest sides of all time. And B, you simply can't overlook the role this man played in CR7's development when he was the assistant coach at Manchester United. Spending 4 years together at Old Trafford from 2004 to 2008, Queiroz helped Ronaldo settle in England during a time where he was struggling with the culture and just the overall game. Basically meaning that he ultimately played a hand in Ronaldo establishing the foundations upon which he then went on to become the best player in the world. So yeah, dead-ass defensive approach aside, that's pretty hefty. Number 6, Luis Felipe Scolari. Okay, so perhaps because it's been a while now and I'm usually on Twitter where the average age is about 8, but this is someone who's relatively forgotten when it comes to Ronnie's development. You see, there's a reason why Ronaldo actually had a better start for Portugal than he did for United, because the way he was, and to be fair still is to this day, sticking to one side and tracking back has never really been in his nature. But while in the first 3 or 4 years at United, there simply was no bargaining as they tried to mold him into a Beckham-like wide mid. With Scolari and Portugal, he had a lot more freedom. Result, even at such an early stage in his career and amongst a golden generation of talent, Ronaldo was still the standout player for his country at both Euro 2004 and World Cup 2006, reaching a final and semi-final respectively. And as far as man management went, there were very few in his career that understood little Ron better than Big Phil. And never forget, this was the first ever manager to make CR7 captain. But yeah, screw them both for those penalty shootouts. F***'s sake man, I need a therapist for that shit. Number 5, Jose Mourinho. In the purest sense of the word, the best coach on this list. But why does he rank only 5th? Well, apparently the same reason why he keeps getting kicked out of jobs these days. Eventually, they fell out. But here's something interesting about Mourinho and his time at Madrid. Jose actually played a much bigger role in shaping CR7's character on the pitch than he's given credit for. Cause you see, while Ronaldo has always been pretty petty and emotional, during his time at Manchester United and his first season at Real Madrid, he never really displayed that insufferable entitlement he would regularly go on to display later on. It wasn't until Mourinho arrived in Madrid and basically declared in front of the entire squad that from this moment on, CR7 was priority. He literally said that in front of the entire squad. And while the rest is history, it's actually both good and bad history, because despite all the amazing success they had together, 100 points, Copa final, sticking it to Pep and etc., adding so much fuel to the fire that is the ego of his fellow narcissists actually came back to haunt the special one near the end, as his efforts to eventually bring his compatriot back down to earth fell on deaf ears and apparently resulted in a huge dressing room argument between the pair, leading Jose to eventually leave Madrid. But still though, this kind of success can never really be denied. PS, I'm actually looking to make an entire separate video on this particular player-manager pairing during the time at Madrid. It's actually pretty fascinating. Let me know if you want to see it. Number 4, Fernando Santos. Yep, 4th. And yep, I remember this. But do you remember this? And this? And this? How about this? Joking, that's not Santos. But it sure looked like him, don't it? R.I.P. OMG. Look, recency bias is a thing, I get that, but that does not take away from the fact that this man took a very mediocre side, built it around a post-tendinitis CR7 and still brought home 2 major trophies. The first, and to date, only 2 in Portuguese history. And up until the last couple of games, I'm sure CR7 will tell you himself that there weren't many, if any, national team coaches that he worked with better. Never forget. Number 3, Carlo Ancelotti. The man who had the distinct pleasure and minor misfortune to have Ronaldo for one season where he was basically the most complete attacker the game had ever seen, and a second season where his powers were clearly beginning to wane. Hello again, tendinitis. I guess you're here to stay. And let's be honest, Ronaldo wasn't really handling the decline very well, was he? With his frustration reaching such a high that he actually seemed annoyed at his teammates on a couple of occasions that season when they scored. Bell end. But this is where the genius of Don Carlo comes in. Mr. Ancelotti actually made the transition as seamless as possible while still getting the best out of his main man. And eventually, the 14-15 season actually became the most prolific one of Ronaldo's career. Why did he sub him off in the 58th minute in the Getafe match, man? He could have so easily broken Messi's record of 50 Oh hey there, Martin. But of course, when it comes to Ronaldo and Mr. Ancelotti, it's pretty much all about La Decima. What a moment, what a game, what a team, what a time. The memories remain. Number 2, Sir Alex Ferguson. By quite some distance, the manager under whom Ronaldo played the most games, and the manager under whom Ronaldo won the most trophies. 3 Premier League titles, 2 Carling Cups, 2 Community Shields, 1 FA Cup, 1 FIFA Club World Cup, and 1 UEFA Champions League to be more specific. But you know what? Even so, this man was more than that. Being there for Cristiano both on and off the pitch, instilling that winner's mindset, filling him with immense confidence, but keeping him in check enough so, you know, it doesn't backfire, cough, all the while never losing sight of the fact that Manchester United was the real priority. The only small thing you can sort of use against him, and the kiddies who cry about Ronnie's goals and assist ratio I'm sure will use against him, was his insistence on trying to make Ronnie a Bex 2.0. But this is what I mean by Manchester United always being the priority. Fergie had a certain system which worked very well, which then didn't work so well when he tried to adjust it for a particular player in the past. Juan Sebastian Veron, for example. Therefore, until he proved himself consistently at at a world-class level. United weren't going to conform to Ronaldo. Ronaldo was going to conform to United. And then what do you know? After paying his dues in the first 3 to 4 years, Sir Alex did eventually come around and give Ronnie his well-earned freedom. And well, from those days till this day, there simply is no stopping him anymore. Long live the great man. And number 1, Zinedine Zidane. How could it be anyone else? Anyone else but the mastermind of the 3P. No manager before, including the great Sir Alexander Chapman Ferguson, had retained the UCL. This man 3-peated it! And he did it with not only CR7 as his main man, but a past prime CR7 as his main man. Yes, really. Because let's not forget, Zizou joined Real Madrid just a few weeks before Ronaldo actually turned 31, having already peaked a couple of years prior, and was now very much in a transition period as far as his game went. And the fact that this magician not only dealt with all of that, but he did so while making history on a continental scale, honestly boggles the mind. So how did he do it? Well, in the first half year, it was very much 4-3-3 with the BBC, with the crucial integration of Casemiro to anchor the midfield. The following 2 seasons though, following his 2 main wingers' injury woes, Zizou changed to a 4-4-2 diamond, which not only got the best out of this new version of Ronaldo, but allowed his team more control even in the bigger games. But in the smaller games, he was the first and to date probably the only manager who managed to convince Ronaldo to rest, leaving him out on various occasions against lesser sides as he was recuperating from the knock he picked out in the final of the European Championships that summer, and giving him the required recovery time to perform when it mattered. And along with the UCL 3P, these guys also bagged the La Liga title as well as a handful of other cup trophies in only 2.5 years together. Genuinely, man, is there anything Zizou can't do? And that is that. Agree or disagree beats indifference. Once again, don't forget to like, comment and share. And of course, subscribe. Till next time, keep rolling.